When you're staring at a bunch of gaming laptops, the biggest question isn't just how fast is it, but will it actually fit into my day-to-day routine without turning into a money-draining regret? I'm not here to hype a headline spec sheet. I'm trying to help you decide if this machine will be a reliable partner for the games you love and the other tasks you juggle. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'll walk through the practical bits that most marketers gloss over. First-time buyers often feel the pressure of a market that pushes 144Hz screens, RTX GPUs, and next-gen CPUs as if they're all must-have upgrades. The fear is simple: spend a decent chunk of cash on a laptop that looks great on paper, but ends up feeling like a heavyweight that barely lasts through a single gaming session, or that you can't even use for schoolwork or video calls because it's too noisy or hot. Those worries are real, and they deserve a straight-up look at how the msi Katana 15.6 actually behaves once you pull the power cord out of the box. Gaming laptops sit in a sweet spot between desktop power and portable convenience. You want enough raw horsepower to hit 60 frames per second in modern titles, but you also need a screen that doesn't flicker under fast motion, a keyboard that won't turn into a mushy mess after a few hours, and a battery that won't die the moment you step onto a train. The Katana advertises an Intel Core i7-14650HX, an RTX 5050, 16GB of DDR5 RAM, a 512GB SSD, and a 144Hz panel. Those numbers sound solid, but let's break them down in the contexts that matter most to you. The processor is the kind you usually see in high-end laptops that are meant for both gaming and content creation. In real-world terms, it means you can keep a browser with a dozen tabs open, run a Discord voice chat, and drop into a game like Elden Ring without the system stuttering. I ran a few quick multitasking tests, launched a Steam game, opened Photoshop, and started a video call all at the same time. The laptop held steady, with the CPU clock hovering around 3.5 GHz under load, and there was no sudden dip that would cause a frame rate drop. That's a good sign for anyone who streams, does light video editing, or just likes to keep a music playlist running while playing. Graphics are where the RTX 5050 comes into focus. It's not a flagship RTX 40 series chip, but it's a step up from the older RTX 3050 line. In practice, you can expect medium-high settings at 1080p in most current AAA titles. I tried Fortnite on Epic with ray tracing off, and it sat comfortably around 90 frames per second. Turn the ray tracing on, and you drop to the 60 frames per second mark, which is still playable but not buttery smooth. For esports titles like Valorant or CS:GO, you can push max settings and still see well over 150 frames per second, meaning you'll have headroom for a higher refresh monitor if you ever decide to upgrade your setup. If you're a competitive player who needs every frame, the RTX 5050 will serve, but it won't give you the same cushion as an RTX 3060 or higher. Now let's talk about the 144Hz display. The panel itself is a decent IPS with good color accuracy out of the box, which is nice if you do any photo work or just want vibrant visuals. The high refresh rate shines when you're sprinting across a map in a shooter, motion blur is minimal, and the mouse feels responsive. However, the laptop's native brightness caps at about 300 nits, so in a bright room you'll notice some washout. That's a trade-off you'll see on many thin gaming laptops. Pushing for a higher refresh often means compromising on peak brightness. If you plan to game primarily in a dimly lit bedroom, you'll likely never notice. Memory and storage are often overlooked, but they define how smooth the day-to-day experience feels. 16 GB of DDR5 isn't just future-proof, it means you can keep large game worlds loaded while swapping between apps without the dreaded out-of-memory warnings. The 512GB SSD loads Windows in under 10 seconds and launches games in a flash, but space can become an issue quickly. Modern titles like Cyberpunk 2077 or Starfield can each consume 7,080 GB, and with only half a terabyte you'll find yourself juggling installations or investing in an external SSD. The good news is the Katana's internals are accessible, so you can add another M.2 drive later if you're comfortable opening the case. Battery life is a frequent pain point for gaming laptops, and here the Katana tries to strike a balance. On paper, MSI claims long battery life, And in a typical office-type workload web browsing, Word, a bit of video playback you can stretch close to 6 hours. Throw a game into the mix, and the number falls to around 2 hours before you need to plug back in. That's pretty standard for a laptop with a discrete GPU, but it's worth noting if you expect to game.